Welcome to Music Matters Podcast with Daryl Craig Harris, talking about all things music with celebrities, artists, music business insiders, and more.
Jamie James, how you doing today?
Hey, good to see you, Daryl. Nice to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I was checking out your latest record, Straight Up. It's been out for a couple of months, and you have your newest single, Showbiz Boogie's been out. I think a couple of was it a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks out.
Awesome. So you have an interesting history because you are also the leader and in a band called the Kingbees, which had a song out called My Mistake, an 80s rockabilly hit. You've also played with Dennis Quaid and the Sharks, Harry Dean Stanton, a lot of folks. And we were just talking about some of the other blues folks that you played with.
Yeah.
So you've been a very busy guy. How are you doing these days?
I'm doing great. I mean, I'm grateful, knock wood, just to be on this side of the dirt and still playing guitar and singing and loving it, man. Just like I did same when I first picked up a guitar. I got my first electric in 1966, and the love and enthusiasm for it hasn't changed since then.
Yeah, and that's an awesome place to be, right? Because a lot of people don't get a chance to say they love their job.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we're fortunate. I mean, I'm a musician as well. We were just talking about that before we started, and it's great to be doing. I'm 60 now. I think maybe you have a couple of years on me, but
yeah, I'm going to be 72 in a couple of weeks. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm catching up. I'm getting there. So tell me about making your the album Straight Up. Who was playing on that? Did you self-produce it? Tell me about that story.
Well, it's interesting because these are all new songs. In 2020, I had just to make a long story longer. I had a quadruple bypass open heart surgery that actually saved my life. And
Wow.
When I came out of that, I decided to focus. That was just before the pandemic hit. So there was nothing going on, with the lockdown and everything. So I just started to really focus on writing songs. And I wrote a bunch of new songs, maybe, about 30 new songs. And I had been playing with the same group of guys backing up Dennis Quaid since around 2000. So we had about 18, 20 years under our belts as a unit, as Tom Walsh on drums and Tom Mancillas on bass and Ken Stange on keyboards. And I hated to see all that go to waste, because we weren't playing much anymore with Dennis. So I asked the guys if they'd like to come in and record some of these new songs, and they wanted to hear them first, and they liked the material. And so we went down to a studio downtown LA called Robot Kitten with this great engineer named Paul Rossler. And we recorded the whole record in one afternoon in about 3.5 hours, so one Monday afternoon. And then I went back in a couple of days later and just redid a couple of harmonica parts, and then added an electric guitar part in a couple of songs, and just did a couple of little vocal harmonies. But all of the vocals, everything on there is like live, because that's what we know how to do, is play live. We just set up, you just turn on the mic or whatever, and we just play. And that's how I've been doing it my whole life.
Yeah, and you talk about some of your early influences, because in the record I hear obviously a lot of blues, kind of blues rock, but the record sounds great. It's the kind of stuff that I personally love. But tell me about your early influences. Who really inspired you as a young guitar player, singer?
If it was on the radio, my mother, one of these situations where my mother had an old radio on top of the refrigerator and it was on all day long. So what was ever on the radio influenced me, to tell you the truth. Especially, I noticed my mother would perk up during certain songs. And so those certain songs would have, I think, a bigger influence on me. But so the radio was on all the time from as far back as I can remember. Not so much a genre, but the excitement of music. When I was younger, going to the parades, watching the drum and fife corps with the snares and the everything, the drums, and that I used to get goosebumps and excited. The parades. marching bands, that used to really be exciting. So, and then hearing some people play live out of their bedrooms or whatever, you're walking down the street and you hear a band, and this was in the 1960s. But as far as like real influences, the biggest one for me was Elvis Presley. That was first and foremost. And because I loved his movies, I loved his songs. I was born in '53. And so, I grew up, kind of like that was a big sound then. And then others came, of course, the Beatles and the Stones and the Kinks and Paul Revere and the Raiders. And, I liked bands like, there were so many of them, but I loved, what was that band that did the Blues Magoos out of New York? They were a good band. I love that band. And there's so many good bands,
Yeah, that was like that 50s, 60s was so rich, right?
Yes.
It's so much good. And the thing you mentioned Elvis because it's interesting, and that's a common thread among a lot of folks. And also Elvis had a killer band. He always had great players with him.
Yes.
Scotty and the other guys, great players.
Yeah. And then later James Burton and exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town called Woodstock, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was born in Toronto, and then when I was about 2 years old or so, we moved down to this little town of 17,000 people. And but it was about 100 miles north of Windsor, which is on the Detroit River, right across the river from Detroit. So we would pick up the music coming out of Detroit.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So
Motown, all the rockets.
Yeah, we picked up all that stuff late at night. I had a little transistor radio, and I could get the I forget the name of the station. Well, there was CKLW in Windsor, but there was another one in Detroit. I forget what it was called, but and it was very exciting. I just loved listening to all of that stuff on the radio.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I had the little AM transistor radio.
Yeah.
it was magical times as a 12-year-old.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned Canada because there's so many musicians, actors, everybody, but there's so many great musicians from Canada. Who were some inspirations Canadian wise that really inspired you?
Let's see. Let's see. Who inspired me? Music?
I know that's a left field question.
Well, I'll tell you some of the early bands I saw that I loved. There, and I don't think they were all Canadian. I think some of the guys were from New York, but there was a group called Grant Smith and the Power. And I went and saw them a couple of times, and they were a fantastic band. Another band that I saw that I loved was a band called Mandela. With this guy, guitar player named Dominic Triano. The guy was an amazing guitar player. I said Lighthouse was another Canadian band that I liked. Edward Bear was a band that I liked. McKenna Mendelssohn was a blues band. You could look them up. They were a killer. They were a good band. So there were a lot of bands I used to go and see in Canada that, and of course I was a pest because I used to try and work my way backstage and always ask a guitar player to show me one riff. It doesn't matter where I'm.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. That's interesting too because I've always said personally, you could go see even if it's just an amateur guitar player, but they might do that one thing, that one really cool thing. You're like, what did they just do? I want to learn that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. No, I was a nuisance, man. I would. I remember I snuck in to see Deep Purple at this place called Wonderland in London, Ontario, about 1968 when Hush had just come out, and I worked my way. I kind of weaseled my way right to the front, right at Richie Blackmore's feet, and man, that was one of the most exciting, electrifying. That guy was so good, man. I mean, that night anyway, he just played he had this old cream-colored Stratocaster through a 100-watt Marshall stack, and he was just on fire, dude. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's just that's the best sound. That or Les Paul, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So on the album Straight Up, how do you normally record or when you're writing? Is it a collaboration? Do you come in prepared with the songs already done? How does that work for you?
Well, it's funny. I with these particular songs, I chose 10 out of the 30 new ones, and I tried to choose ones that I thought would be really fun, first and foremost, for Tom Walsh to play drums on. because if the drummer's happy, everybody's happy. And
Exactly.
so, and so I kept that in mind. Now, mind you, because we'd all been playing together for so many years with Dennis that we knew each other. I felt like I really knew those guys musically, like brothers. It's like a brotherhood. It's just
Right.
so I had a kind of idea of like grooves that I thought would be fun for everybody. And yeah, so no, I wrote the songs. Everything was all together. I had all the songs together. It's just a matter of coming in and then each guy kind of laying his stuff down. And Ken the keyboard player came up with all his own little parts, and but I didn't show anybody what to play or anything. Everybody contributed their own, their talent. I
Yeah.
just showed up with the songs, and the soul, the feeling behind the songs. I would set the groove with my guitar and just start strumming and playing and singing, and then the guys would just fall in.
Yeah, and that's oftentimes too when you allow guys, especially the great players, you allow them to do what they do, you get the best result, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It was magical too that Monday. I don't know, Daryl, have you ever been in the studio or in a rehearsal and you play something with your band and you go, man, I wish we would have recorded that. Well, this was one of those moments where I said, man, I wish we would have recorded that, and we were. And
Right.
so that's one of those things where it just lined up. And of course, I wanted to keep going. I wanted to do more songs, but Tom, the drummer, was ready to kill me. So after 3.5 hours, he had enough.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice to, we were just recently down in Muscle Shoals at Fame, and we did the same thing. We just set up live in the room and like a couple of overdubs, but I love the live feel. Do you feel
Yes.
like that's maybe missing from a lot of music these days where people can just go in and, because a lot of stuff now is just micromanaged and they're punching in, punching out the whole song, right?
I don't know. I'll really be honest with you. I'm not really familiar with what you call music these days because I'm an oldies guy. I listen to oldies.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm not that familiar with stuff, but but I know that the punching in and punching out has been a technique that's been actually going on for a long, long time. A lot of the since the 70s, really, because I think a lot of that, some of that Motown stuff, some of it you could tell was done meticulously. They're punch in and punch out and punch in and punch out. And you can tell that George Martin spent a lot of time, polishing up Beatles
Yeah, right.
things, So I think the studio, it's another instrument, really, And the great
Mm.
thing about Paul Rossler, the engineer with our stuff, and my co-producer is that he like made him he's so good that he made himself invisible, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like
I know exactly what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a good bass player. The good bass player, you kind of don't even really notice it, but it's just there.
exactly,
It's the
exactly.
glue. Yeah.
Yeah, poor guys.
That's okay. I like that rule. That's why I love James Jamerson. I love those guys.
Oh,
The guy, they were,
I was just listening to James Jamerson the other night, and just some of it. I can never get tired of that guy ever. I can't. It was some of the early stuff he did with Little Stevie before he became Stevie Wonder, Little Stevie
yeah.
Wonder, and man, oh man, oh man.
Yeah, I used to do rehearsals. For some reason, he was coming here as Clarence Paul, who was one of the big Motown writers, publishers, and he's the guy that's kind of credited for discovering Stevie Wonder. And that's he was talking. I did when I first played with him. I didn't know who he was. My friend Manny, who had played with Billy Preston, called me to do this rehearsal, and I go in and he's kind of talking about Stevie this and Stevie that. And I'm like, I have no idea who he's talking about. And during the rehearsal, he goes, you really remind me of James playing. And I was like, James, I don't know. He goes, oh, Jamerson. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. But again, I didn't know who he was. When he left, I
Yeah,
asked Manny, I said, so who is that guy? He goes, oh, that's the guy that discovered Stevie Wonder. I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. I love when things like that happen.
I
Yeah.
know it's weird. It's a weird story. That's me name dropping, but I'll get over it. Sorry.
Well,
Um,
that's telling the story, man. I mean, I think it's important that we pass down these stories using the internet and whatever as this tool because all this stuff will get lost in the history books. I mean, if you leave it just to the musicologists and the historians to write things, you're going to maybe get 1% of what really goes on
Right.
in the world of music. You know,
Yeah,
these
we were just talking about that before we started because nowadays everybody has an iPhone, everybody has video, but back when we were doing gigs
yeah,
way back when, like it was rare.
very rare, very
Yeah.
rare. Yeah.
Um, so tell me about the Dennis Quaid story. So Dennis Quaid, I think it was Dennis Quaid and the Sharks, right? Is that the right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So
Yes,
tell
that's
me about
correct.
that because I know Dennis was singing and he was doing gigs. So how did that come about?
Well, I met Dennis through my dear, dear friend, may he rest in peace, Harry Dean Stanton. And Harry and I have been doing music. Harry approached me in the 80s because I got kind of tired of carrying all the pressure and weight of the Kingbees and being the singer in a trio, you know, and the
Yeah, trying to make it
songwriter and stuff. And
happen. Yeah.
yeah, and so I just wanted to do something different, you know, and Harry came down and saw me play at this little club I used to play regularly called the Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach,
Yeah.
and we started
Famous club. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and we started talking, and he said, "Well, I'd like to do. I've made it as an actor, and but I've always music's always been the first love in my heart, and I'd like to do something musically. Are you interested?" And I sat down and we played together, and I loved his voice. His natural singing voice was beautiful. And so we ended up doing we ended up being doing music together for about 10 years or so. And then I met at one of the gigs I used to play on a regular basis, different clubs in LA, but we used to do this every Saturday night at this club called the Mint here in Los Angeles.
Yep.
And Dennis came down one Saturday. This was in about 1999 to 2000, in there somewhere. And yeah, Dennis, I asked him to come, come and sit in with us, which he did, and we had fun. And then he asked me, when's the next time I'm playing? And I said, well, I'm doing a little blues thing, my own thing, on Monday night at this club over in Hollywood Boulevard. And he showed up at that, and we just started clicking. He gave me his number and asked me to call him, and I did. And we got together, and we had a lot of things in common. And like Harry, he was a musician long before he was an actor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he was playing guitar and writing songs and singing long before he got into acting.
Hmm.
And so, one thing led to another, and Dennis and I went up to his ranch in Montana and wrote a bunch of songs together. And then I got brought in the guys, the guys on Straight Up. I brought in Tom Walsh, Ken Stange, and Tom Mancillas, and we just ended up all clicking and did that band for a long time.
Yeah, that's all. And Harry Dean Stanton too. He's a legendary guy, a legendary actor.
Wonderful. And
Yeah.
a great singer too. I miss Harry. And I learned a lot from Harry because, he's from an earlier, he was born in 1926, and
Wow.
he loved to sing all kinds of different songs, including Mexican songs, 1920s and 30s songs. He had a lot of his dear friends were very talented songwriters, such as Chris Christopherson, Billy Swan.
Wow. Yeah.
He very close to the drummer for the band. Well, his name slips my mind right now, but
I know. I can't think of it either.
yeah. But anyway, so
Levi.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Levon Helm. So
Levi.
what I'm saying is Harry would do songs, that were influenced by his friends. His friends would play something and then he'd want to do it, or he'd go to a club and see them playing it and then he'd want to do it. So he had a very interesting and very eclectic selection of songs. And I found that very interesting and very challenging.
Hmm.
And I learned a lot. I learned a lot as a guitar player by playing with Harry, And so it was a very good time. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's funny in life, like it's happened to me as well. Like, you kind of go down a certain path and then the universe has other plans and these guys come into
Yes,
your life that you would have never, I mean, you
that's
would have
right.
never been thinking that Dennis Quaid was going to show up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
No, and I mean the thing with Harry, I thought was going to last maybe 2-3 months, and that went for over 10 years. And
Wow.
Dennis, I didn't even know. I thought maybe we'd do a couple of shows together, and then we ended up. And I had no idea. Like Harry Dean, I had no idea who Harry was. Not a clue.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And the same with Dennis. I had no idea. I didn't even know, he was popular until we were in San Francisco early on to do a little show up there. And he and I went into some little shop somewhere, and then the guy in the shop asked for his autograph. And I said, man, people know this guy knows who you are. Like, that's crazy. So,
Yeah.
it's I had no clue, because I've been into my music my whole life. I didn't go to movies or, go out to dinners or anything like that. I was playing
Right.
clubs all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because he was very, especially when you first started with him, he was very famous.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was getting started when we first started. A few months after we started, he signed on to do a movie called The Rookie,
Right.
where he plays a pitcher.
Right.
And so we'd go to Texas. He was shooting that in Texas, and so we'd go there, the band from LA, and we go every other week, and we played every other Monday and Tuesday at this club called Antone's.
Oh, awesome.
And it tightened us up. We played there every other Monday and Tuesday night, back to back, and it was always packed. And it was it really tightened us up as a band, and it just took off from there, really.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's such a, and it's nice to have kind of a diverse career where you find new things and new challenges, and that's, we were talking about before we started, like a lot of people in this life don't get those opportunities. So it's nice to be able to have those stories and that kind of background, right?
Oh, absolutely. Ugh. I was telling you about you were saying you're from Huntington Beach. I was telling you about the Golden Bear. Now, I played there with the Kingbees in 1980, and I loved it. That was the old Golden Bear before they changed it. It was still, but like the first time, what I was telling you about was that in 1975, playing rhythm guitar for Freddie King. But what I didn't get a chance to tell you, anyway, the thing is, like I told you, there was no one in the audience that could see my moment of glory on stage playing rhythm guitar for Freddie King.
With one of your heroes, right?
Yeah, right. And so I'm standing up there playing, and now I had to fake my way through a couple of the songs, like "Woman Across the River." I wasn't that familiar with it, but and I'm standing right in front of Benny, the bass player, and or Benji, I think his name, and I think he was somehow related to Freddie, actually, like his half brother or something. Well, at one point in the show, Freddie turns to me and beckons me with his finger, like, come out to the front of the stage. And I'm standing there, and I look at Benny like, what's he saying to me? And Benny says, he wants you to go step up front, man, step up front. And I'm like, step up front? What, next to this Goliath? Are you kidding? I really got nervous, but I stepped up front, and all I did, and he played, and then he looked at me like to answer him. So he played, and all I did is, and I swear to God, this is all I did is play every Freddie King lick I knew back to him. Like,
that's funny. He's like, this guy's confident of me.
That's and I remember after the show, came walking out backstage and go back to the dressing room. And he said to me, "You got it, son. You got it." I was like, "Oh, Freddie, man, that's just like you just handed me a PhD in the blues, man. Thank you."
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he's just legendary.
Man.
It's sad too because a lot of those guys these days have moved on. They were a lot of the old blues guys, well, rockers too. I mean, as we got older,
Not me, my friend. Not me. I didn't expect anybody to even pay attention to this record. I wasn't going in there to make a record. I didn't have a record deal. I just wanted to go in and record some new songs from my heart,
That's awesome.
the way I wanted to do them. With my and and then so when I finished them, I said, "This sounds pretty good." And I only knew two people in the recording business because I'd been out of the recording industry for 45 years, only just doing live performances.
Right.
But I knew two people basically, and I sent it to two of them, and they both liked it, and ended up, Carl Capriolio and I had tried something together in the 90s that really didn't work out. And we talked about it, and he was very enthusiastic about the songs and the music. And so it's turned out to be wonderful, like his support. And I didn't expect anything like it. I'll be very frank, man. It's been wonderful, man. And doing these podcasts and stuff has been kind of like an eye opener for me that people still appreciate just live, raw, real, honest music.
Yeah, and it's kept a lot of careers going too. You know, you can think of a lot of the folks that we know that are out there still touring all the time. It's because there's still a love for a live, authentic, real guitar, real drum, bass. Like that. I think that's not ever going to go away. It changes over time, of course, but also social media and streaming has helped keep a lot of those things alive because it's given access to, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a record deal. You could just let people know that your stuff's out there and they can find you, right?
Absolutely. No, that's a good point. Yeah, and I mean, come on, why I say to myself, Jamie, why do you think people like Keith Richards and Mick Jagger are still going out playing? They don't need the money. As far as anything I've read, they seem to be loaded.
Right.
Those guys have been making more money than God since the 1960s. So why do they go out? It's because they gotta love it. It's like breathing. You need it like oxygen,
Yeah, it's who they are. What else would they do?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And I get that. I get that, man.
what's some advice? I always ask my guests this. What's some advice that you would give to young musicians and people that want to get out there and play and record? What's some big things that you've learned along the way?
Okay, so a couple of things I can tell you. This is one thing. Don't be afraid of being good. Another word, work hard. Okay, work hard. Practice. Practice, 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 and don't cheat yourself. Don't quit practicing until you play it right. Your ear, trust your ear. Your ear is going to tell you if you're playing it right or not. You have your own standard, and don't underestimate the sophistication of your own ear and trust it. Practice, live up to your own truth, what you hear of whatever instrument it is you're playing. And if you have trouble getting it on a particular day, maybe let it rest for a day or two and then get back and try it again. So keep practicing. Another thing is when you do finally get a chance to perform, and this is something I learned from Keith Moon of The Who, which is a whole other story. I could tell you if you like really quickly.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, in 1971, I'd gone over to England as a young 18-year-old with all these songs I had been writing since in the 60s. And my mother had cut an article out of the newspaper saying that the Beatles started a new company called Apple Music, and they were looking for songwriters. And so I took some of my money from my gigs, and I went over and I had my little guitar with me and a little suitcase and my songs. And I went knocking up. It was on a Saturday, and I knocked on the front door at Apple offices on Savile Row, the building where they played up on the roof,
Yeah, yeah.
And the security guy opens the door, and a guy that worked there. And I said, "Excuse me, sir. I'd like to play my songs for somebody, please. I have this article that was cut out," and I had the thing. And the guy looked at me almost like with pity in his eyes, and he's like, "No." He said, "No, son. You have to go through the proper channels. It doesn't work this way." And he invited me in for a second because it was drizzling outside, and then of course he told me the proper things to do, and I left kind of dejected and walking down the stairs and said, "Oh boy, what have I done now? I came all the way from Toronto to London, and I don't know anybody here, and what am I going to do?" And anyway, eventually I met this friend of mine that lived there, and in fact later that day actually. And he was working, and I got a job in this little shop in Soho, a little clothing shop called The Westerner. It was a cool little shop, and right off of Wardour Street, where the Marquee Club was, and Ronnie Scott's Club. There was all these clubs.
Yeah, in the middle of everything. Yeah.
Yes, and one day this big white Rolls Royce pulls up to the little shop, and I was in the shop alone. And we used to sell like the Wrangler denim shirts and the fringe jackets from Spain.
Yeah,
so
all the cool stuff.
Yeah, and there was this guy Dougal, his chauffeur, and he comes in, peeks his head in the store. He goes back, and then Keith Moon comes in behind him, and he's wearing a 3-piece satin tuxedo, and he says, "If you lock the door behind me, keep everybody out, I'll spend more money here today than you'll make all week." And I said, "Are you kidding? Done deal." And so Dougal went off to get him some beer. And so for the afternoon, I had Keith Moon in there, and he was drinking beer, and we were just talking. And I asked him a couple of things, exactly what you asked me. I said, "I'm a young musician. What advice would you give me?" And he said, one thing he said I learned on the Who's first American tour, we were playing in Chicago, and I realized that I've got to go up there, and if these people are paying $5 for a ticket, a concert ticket, I want to give them a $15 show. And so
Hmm.
that's something that I took to heart. And so whenever I've taken the stage, I always tried to give everything I've got.
Yep.
Everything I've got whenever I get to perform, studio, stage, rehearsal, just give it everything you got, like it's the last time you're going to play.
Yeah, that's my philosophy as well. I always play it like it's going to be your last show, and one day you're going to be right.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully not anytime soon.
Yeah. Actually, I shouldn't be laughing about that with my heart condition, but yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's funny. Jay, how can people find you online? And do you have a website, all that stuff? Let's share that information.
Well, no, I actually don't. I'm not really a very much of a technology person, but I think you can go to oliorecords.com or Olio Entertainment, OLIO. The G is silent. OLGIO, Olio Entertainment.
Actually, I'll correct you. It's OG. Yeah, OGLIO Records. That's it. Yeah, just to double check. But I'm gonna put all this in the description as well. But
yeah, Olio, and and you can go to YouTube and just put in Jamie James, and then Let the Praying Begin. We did a video. It was my first video that I'd ever made because the Kingbees broke up before MTV even came out. We broke up in March of '81, and then the newest video is the Showbiz Boogie, and then we have the vinyl is going to come out in September, on September 12th. The album's going to come out on vinyl,
awesome.
And we're going to have a third single, the one called Septuagenarian Blues. I don't know if you heard that song on the album, but
yeah, I went through everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Septuagenarian Blues is going to be the third single, and that's going to come out with just before the album drops. And so if people just go to YouTube and search that, or just I don't know, maybe just put in my name, Jamie James. I'm not sure what happens, but
yeah, they'll find you because I found you. I found your videos on there, and it was great.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Everybody, I would encourage everybody to check out all the music, and like you said, on YouTube as well. It's great music. It's Americana, blues Americana, which is kind of like what I love the best. And great playing, great singing. Yeah, it's a pleasure to talk with you. We have a lot of. I'm sure we could go on for a long time because I know we have a lot of mutual friends probably too.
It's been a joy, Daryl. It's been a joy.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jamie. Jamie, have a great day, and I will be sending links, and we'll include all your information in the podcast description so people can find you.
Okay, great, and maybe we can talk again when the vinyl comes out. We'll see what happens. I enjoyed myself.
Awesome. Yeah. I love the vinyl. Your record is actually, the songs are perfect for vinyl. It gets that really like analog, fat, blues sound. So
cool. All right.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us, and please consider subscribing to our podcast and follow us on our social media pages for guest announcements.